I've got this one on here, and what it does is, if you look down that frame, you'll notice the frame torque comes out, and actually I've made it so that the pipe comes out too. Now this isn't overly pretty, and what I mean by that is I didn't go to hardly any effort to hide the weld marks, because I'm kind of a rat rod guy. Now, I don't think of this as a rat rod, but some people would. It's kind of funny to me, the evolution of car talk, and I'm going to talk about that a little bit because I was just thinking about it this morning. When I was a kid, and I'm talking about sandbox kid, you know, I'm playing in the sandbox. A hot rod was something like a Model A Roadster, fenderless, no hood. You could see the engine out front, you could see the tires sticking out. That was what I wanted to have as a kid. Very much like the rat rod is today, except the rat rod's bigger than the Model A or the 32 would have been. And we called those hot rods. Back in the 70s, National Street Rod Association started, I'm guessing, around 72 or 3 or sometime along in there. I remember because I was a charter member of the National Street Rod Association, and they had National Street Rod Association magazine that came out, and I at one point had all those original old magazines. I probably don't have them anymore after the flood and everything. But you know, we went from hot rods to street rods, and then later on, street rods began to apply more to like Camaros and Roadrunners and Firebirds and Mustangs. But you have to keep in mind, when we were driving, when National Street Rod Association came out, Camaros, Mustangs, Roadrunners, those were daily drivers. Those were cars that women drove to the shopping center. You'd buy them right off the parking lot, Chargers and Mustangs and all those cars. Those were just people's regular cars. Nothing special. Even though they've turned out to be very special because they're awfully fun to drive, and they were, during that period, you know, sort of the top of the line as far as if you wanted to buy a fun car and a car that you could also drive and all that, then that was the car to buy. And then later, someone coined the term rat rod, which a rat rod is very much like an original hot rod would have been back in the 50s. You know, and so now, you know, when you say street rod, people think of Camaros and stuff. When you say hot rod, they're not sure what to call that, you know, but they recognize a rat rod because usually it's got rust on it. This car, in my opinion, would be considered a hot rod, although I could see where someone might call it a rat rod. And the rat rod's definitely a rat rod, and I don't think anybody's ever going to call it anything different than that, except they might call it a traditional hot rod, which is kind of what I was going for when I built that car. And let me say this about that. A lot of what people call rat rods are, to me, gimmick cars. And I'll give you an example. Someone will take like an S10 Chevy frame. They'll stick some monstrosity of metal over the front of it. They might make the front of it look like a Dragon or something. They might put saw blades on the front of it because they're actually hiding that front axle, because the front axle on that S10 sticks way out, and so you have to put something out there over that, or you leave that hanging out in the open. And people, I've seen Deadeye Dan, he turned a set of like 47 Chevrolet fenders backwards and used the back fenders for the front fenders. People have done all kind of things with those, but to me, that's not a rat rod. That's kind of I'm not sure what that is, but when I think of rat rod, I don't think of that. Although a lot of people do it, and they hang all kind of. They make them look like float parades. You know, they got every kind of gimmick you can imagine. They got them breathing fire. They got them shooting flames. You know, all of that's. You know, to me, I like a traditional hot rod, like the one I got, or like this. And it's funny because I realize that there seems like there's very few people driving this kind of car these days. And I think because I've talked to several people recently who've told me the story how they bought their Mustang or their car, or whatever, their Charger or their Camaro in high school, their Nova, and they've had it ever since. And over the years, they've modified it. We talked to a really nice guy who put a Corvette frame under his and a Corvette engine, and still got a Chevy 2 Nova. And that is very popular, especially down here, because a lot of people down here bought those cars brand new, kept them all that time, and are still driving them. Whereas up north, where I came from, a lot of the cars rusted out pretty quick, and so people that saved some of the antique cars have something like what I've got, and I think they're more prevalent up there. In my heart, this kind of car is more of what I want. Now, having said that, I had a '67 Super Sport. I think it was a Rally Sport Camaro, and it was a great car to drive. It was ridiculously fun to drive, easy to control. Wouldn't mind having another one. In fact, I'd be delighted to have another one. But I don't consider it a hot rod, and if I'm going for hot rod, I'm going for something like this. That's just me. I was going to say something else there. What else was I going to say? About some other brand of, or definition of something. But anyway, none of that means anything. But what does mean anything is now I got pipes that aren't beating up against the battery box or the frame. I like the little turnout. I've got the other one still to do. It's here on the thing. I've got to bend and weld some pipes on it. And I don't know if I've got enough black paint to paint it or not without going to town, but we'll see. But I'll go ahead and keep going, and that'll be my morning job. After I get these two things done, I'm going to work on putting that piece of Studebaker trim up here on the front of this. Oh, the joy. I'm going to need to go to town and buy some paint. So I'll go to town and bounce some paint. See y'all later.